So how do you recommend on LinkedIn? Well, firstly, you go to the person's profile that you want to recommend. So in this case, I'm on Reg's profile. And you'll see the option at the top here, there's message and more. So if you click on more, you will see request a recommendation and recommend. So if you want to request one from the person, you click here. If you want to give one, you click on this option. So you click recommend. Then you need to select the relationship. So work out which is the most accurate option. So I might say you were a client, you taught them, you mentored them. There's no option to say you were taught by the person. So you need to work out, well, which is the best one here. So in this case, I'm just going to select this one. Position at the time, so you select their position. So I'll say that one. Next. Now we write the recommendation. So you could write something fairly broad, fairly high level, but it's much more effective to write something specific. So think about what would be helpful to them, but also what is useful for your brand, because your words will show up on their profile and your own profile under Given, and the words reflect your brand. So you might start with something like, as a expert X, blah, blah, blah is important to me or important to develop. So I engaged Reg for some video marketing upskilling, and this is what I got from it. Something like that. So what were the outcomes? What were the takeaways? Maybe something about their style of delivery, the way that they work, their personality, their ethics, all that sort of stuff. So think about what's useful for them and write a paragraph. Now, if you're going to do multiple paragraphs, put a line in between so you've got that white space so it's scannable, and then send. And then once it's sent, the person gets to approve it first or ask for adjustments. And just a quick one, make sure there's no typos, because that's going to not look great for your brand either. So you'll see here there's a little G in the corner, the little arrow, this little arrow. This is the Grammarly plugin. So if I start typing something and I spell it wrong, see it's red underlined, and that comes from Grammarly. You might have other plugins that you use. Alternatively, write it somewhere else. So write it in Word, in Pages, in Google Docs, wherever you work, and run it through a spell check. Make sure it's correct. And then paste it here and send. So off it goes. And then what happens is on the person's profile, so let's look down here. It's right down the bottom. You'll see here received and given. So any that they received shows up, and the last two are here. Any that they've given show up here as well. So for yourself, it's going to show up on your profile under Given. So you can see here, I've given one to Reg, and that shows up here. So if there was a typo, or I'd put something quite bland, it's going to show here. And you can see I've actually given two. Now here's a workaround for this, because you can only give one recommendation to a person per role. So for this one, I would have given a recommendation for one role and then for another. So that's how you can end up with two. So there you go. So if you want to give a recommendation, that's where you go. So if you're recommending me, for instance, you would go to my profile, and at the very top, you'd go to more, you'd go to recommend, and you'd write the recommendation. And think about the difference I made, the difference, the outcome that you got from the training, the results you got from implementing the training, those sorts of things, because that's going to be useful for yourself and for anybody reading it. So there you go. Think about who you can recommend and bring it into your practice. Maybe it's a monthly activity at the end of the month. Think about who you've worked with during the month that deserves a recommendation. Thanks very much for watching.